What's up, Pirates? Wraith and Jim here with Awaken TCG, and today we have OP05 tier list. So we're going to be going through every single leader, ranking them between these tiers here. You can see on the screen, the best, pretty good, it's okay, for fun, and oof. And then on the bottom right of the top three tiers, we have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, because a lot of people in One Piece separate and differentiate the tiers by just saying tier 1, tier 2, etc. So we're going to start this OP05 tier list, and we're going to give you guys the best, most accurate, greatest OP05 tier list out yet.
Yep. All right. Let's kind of pick a random leader here. And first up, we're going to grab Black and Red Sabo. Now, Black and Red Sabo, uh, I honestly don't think anybody's really giving the deck a chance. I'm not saying the deck is like a hidden gem or anything, but I don't think it's going to be great. But I think it kind of has a spot. So, I mean, if I were to put it somewhere, it's either in It's Okay or it's in for fun.
Yeah, I think it's okay. It's fine. It can definitely, sneak some games out on some of the tier 2 decks, maybe even tier 1 decks. So let's put a little bit of respect on it. Obviously, it's a deck that just is not going to get the love and testing that other decks that we know are good are going to get. And so obviously that already is it's just a not a good look for Sabo.
Unfortunately, because I think the leader's really cool.
Yeah. Next up, let's go and let's go and grab Charlotte Linlin. This deck is a mono yellow deck, and it's basically its rivals are Enel, Katakuri. We won't talk about Yamato, but it's like these other two mono yellow decks just can do what this deck does better, right? So at a certain point, you have so much triggers in your deck, you don't need to rely on your leader ability to actually just put them in there, and when you can just freely take life and just get random triggers throughout the match, which happens so often now with the amount of triggers that yellow actually runs. So Charlotte Lillian, I'd actually rank how you rank Sabo, like bottom tier 3 or 4 fun, honestly.
Yeah, I think just for the fact that you're a yellow deck that can play 10 cost Big Mom means you deserve to be, and at least it's okay, to be honest. But yeah, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
the leader effect is a bit too slow and a bit too expensive. Attaching two Dawn is obviously going to not let you play like Big Mom or something like that. Barely let you play Katakuri, also only working when you're at 3 life or less. So just a bit too slow for the current meta, I think.
Fair assessment.
Um, but next up here, let's take a look at a very much forgotten deck. We have Purple Starter Deck Shanks. This guy was never good. And unfortunately, I don't think he will ever be good. Unfortunately, his leader effect is not only archetype locked to film, so you have to build your whole deck being film,
Yeah.
which means you can't play a lot of great purple cards, even if you wanted to. I mean, you could slot them in, but they don't work with your leader. And the other hand, it's kind of just not that great. It is what? Dom -3 to give. Is it all of your film type characters plus 2K?
Yes. All
Yeah.
all film type.
So, I mean, compare this guy to Bello Betty, right? Bello Betty trashes a card and probably gives the same amount of characters on board and more power for a easier effect. So,
Yeah, I
I
mean, at the
mean,
end of the day, it's just with the meta being so board control heavy, it's just you won't ever have a board that's gonna be more than 3 units ever stick around.
yeah. So, unfortunately, this is going to be our first right into oof tier.
Next up, let's go ahead and grab Croc. Blue Croc.
Blue
I think Blue
Croc.
Croc is a great deck still, and it can easily take games in tier 3, tier 2, even in tier 1. This deck here is just, it has everything that Blue has to offer with having a pretty decent leader effect. Obviously, it is a little costly, but I would put this somewhere in the middle between tier 2 and tier 3. I like Croc. I don't think it's a bad deck by any means, and you could definitely, perform on it in a regional, in my opinion, still.
Yeah, I'll put some respect on it. I think it deserves tier two. We do have somebody at our locals that plays this deck, and hey, it gets wins. This deck is definitely has a spot in the meta. That new 10 drop Kaido definitely put it in a good spot for sure.
Yeah, and obviously, guys, when we're putting these leaders in their respective tiers, we are not ordering them in the tiers. They're just going into the tier in random places as we're just randomly picking leaders. So,
Hmm.
yeah, just a little
Yeah,
side
we
note.
might order tier one, but we'll
Mhm.
have to see about that. Speaking of tier one, Let's grab purple Luffy. So this leader, everybody was saying was going to be like the best leader early in the meta in Japan, I mean. But nowadays, everybody knows Sakazuki's the best, but everybody knows Purple Luffy is great. Everybody calls this leader tier 1, but performance-wise, I don't know. When you look at him on paper, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? You're into the best deck in the meta, Sakazuki. You have a bad matchup. You have a good matchup in Enel and other yellow decks, but obviously you can still lose these matchups to triggers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Any aggro deck, Bello Betty, Zoro, Law, you're getting cooked by because you cannot use your leader effect, so there's no reason to be really playing this leader over any other purple leader at that point. So honestly, just a ton of bad matchups across the board, including the most played deck in the meta being one of your worst. So it's kind of a miracle that this deck still manages, I think, to be tier 1. So I think we can put it here safely, but I'm definitely, on the lookout for this deck.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it still deserves a spot in tier 1. I think, like you said, the worst part about it is just, if you go into a regional in OP05 over here in the West, we're going to see about 30% Sakazukis. So the amount of Sakazukis you're going to run into is a good amount, and you're, in going into a losing matchup. So that never, ends well for a deck like Purple Luffy. But obviously, if Enel and Katakuri are popular, then obviously you can go on a run and see mainly yellow and have a good run. So I think it just depends on what kind of decks are brought to a tournament. But yeah, like you said, rush decks obviously do have the upper hand on Pluffy, but I think it's still deserving in tier 1.
You're next up, Chief.
Oh yep, hold on, let me clap for my recording. All right, next up, let's go and grab Green Kid. Green Kid, I have not tested him since OP04, going into OP05, but I think it's one of those situations where Dofi, Film Kid, like these archetypes that were really good in OP04, are just really bad in OP05. You want to, have these combos where you Luffy, Brook, drop a 3-drop, right? 3 characters, 3 cards out of your hand, but you have 3 characters on board. Sakazuki just goes Luchi, Hound Blaze at 10 Dawn. Your whole board is wiped. Now you're at 3 cards. And there goes your whole strategy, right? So these 2 decks, I mean, we'll just start with this one, obviously, but I don't think they have a spot in the meta where you should be too afraid of, especially if you're playing one of the tier 1 decks. Obviously, green is still a solid color, but it's just not as present anymore with these new leaders being so good. I think I would put this kid at tier 3.
Okay. I don't have a lot to say about this leader, to be honest, so I'll have to agree with that one. Next up here, let's grab red starter deck Luffy. So this guy has not seen a lot of play, to be honest with you. There was really no reason to play him over any other red deck like Zoro or Law or even Bello Betty nowadays. He kind of had like a interesting like mid-range role in the meta that just doesn't work anymore. Same reason Whitebeard is not amazing. You play one body and it gets removed. So unfortunately, I think if you go red, you have to go full rush. And if you're going full rush, this is just not the leader for that.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think it's okay for fun. I really don't know what to put it in.
Yeah, I'm okay with putting it in. It's okay. Obviously, it doesn't get any play, but it's still a decent leader effect, and with the right pilot, it can still be scary. So I think tier 3 is good.
For sure.
Yeah, next up, Red Uta. I'm gonna throw this in for fun or oof. I'm not too sure on the effect, even what it even is. I'm gonna be honest. I probably won't ever play the deck. No disrespect like, to any of the for fun or oof leaders, but yeah, just throw it in wherever you think it's.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about that leader. I don't think I've ever seen it top a tournament, or anybody play it for that matter. Yeah. It's just not an explored leader, and I don't think there's any reason to. Next up here, let's grab Blue and Yellow Queen. So this is a very interesting leader this set. It actually didn't really get much new support. I think the only new support this leader gets is people are playing the new 8 cost vanilla, the John Giant, the 810,
Yeah.
which is interesting. Right, because it's a big body with a counter, which
Mhm.
is good sometimes if you don't need it, if you have too many of your big drops. I think that might be the reason they play it. I'm not sure. If you Queen mains, will have to let me know in the comments, but I don't think this deck is bad. Um, Honestly, I'd be tempted to put it in pretty good because I think just if you can get your big body engine rolling with healing every turn, I think you could be in a good spot against Sakazuki. I'm honestly not 100% familiar, but I know this deck topped a bit in the East in OP05, so I know it is interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean like somewhere like in the end of tier 2.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think
Yeah.
we could fit it in here.
Yeah, I think it fits in tier 2, yeah. Next up, let's go ahead and grab Croc. Purple yellow Croc.
Purple, yellow, Croc.
This deck is good. This deck is good. It's definitely decent. It's not no tier 1 deck. Would I consider it tier 2? Possibly. I want to throw it in tier 3. Um, while it can take some games, especially with if you don't know how this deck plays or how to play against it, it could punish you. It could really punish you. But yeah, I think tier 3 is a solid
For
spot
sure.
for it.
Um, yeah, played it last set, but I have not actually tried it this set, unfortunately. So, I might try it in the future. We'll see if it wins a locals pull or something like that. But Scribe, kind of a forgotten leader. Black Luffy showed up a bit last set. Um, as one of the best mono black decks, surprisingly. I think it was great into Whitebeard, as I've talked about before, just because the one free Dawn attachment every turn, if you're killing something, can allow you to play on curve
Yeah.
and swing into Whitebeard, which is really good sometimes. But nowadays, obviously, why are you playing this deck if Sakazuki is an option?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're gonna go for a black leader, let's be honest. We're not picking Luffy.
Yeah, I mean, Black didn't really. The only new tool that Black got this set that is really good is Luchi and Rebecca. Honestly, you're probably running them in this deck, and you can kind of probably make like a mini Sakazuki, kind of like what that one player did on Smoker towards the end of OP04.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know if it's going to be great. It's just going to be less consistent Sakazuki. So for that reason, probably want to put it in tier 3 as well.
Yeah.
A lot of tier 3s.
Yeah. A lot of average decks for sure. Let's go ahead and grab Rebecca.
Oh,
Now,
that is not from there.
Rebecca is a good. It's another situation where it's like, why not just play Sakazuki, right? Sakazuki can do everything Rebecca can do, but just better. You don't have to worry about cards that are leader locked. You don't have to worry about not being able to swing with your leader. Yeah, you have one less life, but at the end of the day, you just have a better leader effect. You have, just the same amount of support. Uh, you know, better control over the board. You can swing every turn. I'm gonna put Rebecca in tier 3 as well. I think the deck can still sneak some wins, but it's definitely not as strong as people think. Like at that point, just play Sakazuki. It's the same color. The decks are played the same way, and just no reason not to play Sakazuki in that situation.
Yeah, same color combo as Sakazuki, except you are strictly locked into an archetype,
Yeah,
and
and
your leader can
yeah,
attack.
you can
So.
attack.
Let's look at a amazingly strong leader, Iceberg. So Iceberg, the first leader that can attack, is going to be, even though purple is in a better spot this time around, I do think he is still really bad. Not being able to attack is always going to be extremely, extremely detrimental to
Yeah,
you unless your leader effect is like absolutely bonkers insane. Kind of like Rebecca last set, and even then, it didn't do enough to even be one of the most performing decks. It would show up now and again in the top 16, but I don't know if it ever won anything
yeah,
or anything like that. It might have won one or two if I'm forgetting, but this one, yeah, just not attacking and not having the best ability in the world is not going to lead you to any victories anytime soon.
yeah. 100%. That's a good spot to put it in. Let's go ahead and grab Black Sakazuki. Again, black leader. I'm gonna throw this in oof. You just don't want to play this deck. You have so many better options. Just don't play the deck, right? You're not gonna win a tournament. You're not gonna place high at Nats with it. It's just a bad deck, in my opinion.
Yeah, just way too expensive. Trashing a card and tapping 3 Dawn to kill a 0 cost character is just
Too much.
laughably expensive. Next up here, let's grab Green Kinemon. Saw a bit of a resurgence towards the end of our OPO 4.5 meta at the end there, as it was one of the best decks again to yellow, which
Mm-hmm.
most people considered the best deck towards the end. But honestly, now I don't think green's in a good spot.
Yeah, no, not at all.
You're definitely more of a green specialist than me, but this one, like even more so, I don't think there's any reason to play this deck. And even if you did and tried to optimize, like your best plays with this deck were like Yamato early, Sakazuki's removing that for free.
Mm-hmm.
You play an Odin, again, removing it for free. Just you get one good card on curve, like on a curve early per turn, but it doesn't really matter if it just gets removed anyway, right? So
Yeah, I think our first for fun deck for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
we'll win a locals randomly. I would not be surprised.
yeah. Next up, let's go ahead and grab Arlong. So Arlong is a deck that I tried as soon as it released, but it just doesn't have the support. It doesn't have good support, and then its leader ability makes you play something out of your hand, but at the end of the day, there's no, you're not drawing a card, you're not cycling. There's nothing to actually like give you an advantage, right? Yeah, you're playing a 4 cost on 3 Dawn maybe, if that, if you're not already playing a 3 Dawn character, but it's just I think it's just the colors for it is just not the best yet. We're gonna see Yamato and OP06 have a nice little. Um, it's gonna have its time to shine, I think, and just because the leader is so broken, is what makes those colors work. But yeah, I don't think Arlong is a tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 deck. I definitely would put it in for fun because for me it's still a fun deck to play, but
Yeah, for sure.
it's just not good.
Yeah, definitely not good. Next up here, let's grab Emporio Ivankov. Um, so I think the only meta this deck ever like slightly showed up in was the set it was introduced in set 2. Um, just because it was good into Zoro, Zoro being one of the best decks at that point in time, made it actually a good, decent deck to play.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, Blue's good, right? Blue's like nowadays really good. You got your big bodies that you can play and all that stuff, which is what they used to struggle with. But another leader that is very locked into an archetype. This leader is not doing anything unless you're consistently going down to 0 cards in hand, right? Which means you need to play a certain deck for it. You need to play discard. You need to play all these other cards. Not only that, the fact is you are going down to 0 and you don't know what the next 2 cards you draw are. And that is just inconsistent at the end of the day. And inconsistency is going to be really terrible. And I don't think anybody's going to try this deck as well. So I don't think it'll ever escape Oof tier.
Yeah, definitely good spot for an oof tier. Let's grab Enel. Now Enel, I've been testing for months. I'm heavily debating to play it for Nats. I'm like almost 90% sure I will run this deck, but this deck's amazing, a lot better than I expected. One thing I do want to say though is a lot of people say that Pluffy, Enel, and Sakazuki, they have this rock paper scissors kind of triangle. I think that was true before Sakaluchi became a thing. I think Sakazuki with the newer deck list give it the advantage over Enel. I personally believe that Enel is at a disadvantage. Probably like a 55-45 against Sakazuki. That is my personal opinion from a lot of games, a lot of matches into that matchup, and so I just want to make that clear. I think a lot of people have the wrong idea on the actual triangle that is supposed to be a thing. I think Luffy does beat Enel. I don't think Enel beats Sakazuki anymore, or as easy as people think. And Sakazuki just destroys Luffy. So that definitely plays a factor into me deciding what deck I'm going to run. But yeah, I think Enel is for sure tier 1 deck. It's tier 1. No, hands down.
Yeah.
It's just so good. The leader effect
Well,
is amazing, and this deck is the scrub killer. If you don't know how to play the game perfectly and you're not a top player, this deck will just scrub out any player that is not in that top 1% for sure.
100%. And also has, I think, the most showings out of any deck. I think it's already won 2 regionals and something or other like that. So definitely the biggest winner so far in the meta. We'll see what happens in nationals though. Next up here, we have Nefertari Vivi. A very interesting leader. Like, this leader is super cool. Giving characters rush for 2 Dawn and also drawing a card is awesome. But it just makes things awkward. It's like, it's not expensive when you think about it. Like, oh, 2 Dawn to do that sounds good. But the fact is, to make it worth it and do anything, you need to also have played a character. So say we're on 5 Dawn, the max character you can play is only 3 costs. And sure, it can swing that turn. You turn into a rush, but a lot of these characters you also want to play have like Dawn X1, so now we need another Dawn to attach. This has been Vivi's main problem. It's just like too expensive. On top of the leader not being able to attack, which is just not great. If this leader was like a 4-life leader and it could attack, it would be kind of an interesting leader. I think you could go kind of like a weird aggro thing, but unfortunately, going to be an oofer for fun. It doesn't have enough testing, and I have not seen any deck lists this time. I don't even know if it got any great support this set.
Nah.
But yeah, I think we'll just put it in oof tier.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were trying to do with Vivi and Rebecca and just not being able to attack. Obviously, Rebecca, when it came out, it was pretty decent force in the meta for its set, but yeah, these cannot attack leaders definitely have to go unless the leader effect is just super broken, in my opinion. So next up, let's grab King. King, put him straight into oof tier. I've not much words for it. It's a purple deck. You have better purple options, and it's just one of those decks you just don't want to run. It's just very bad effect, and yeah.
I think I might combat you right now, I'll be honest. Okay, this leader is like one of the weirdest leaders ever. He'll get results like randomly. He has like random wins and like tournaments.
Like 1.
But listen, purple power level has gotten bigger since the new starter deck. And I don't know. I think he might have a place in for fun, is all I'm arguing.
Let's be honest. You need to be at 10 Dawn if you Kaido. If you do any Dawn minus, you're delaying your 10 Dawn. The amount of times that you Dawn minus in a purple deck is insane. How often are you at 10 Dawn on a purple deck? Not too often. Maybe 2 or 3 turns before you Dawn minus. I think it's counterintuitive to what purple wants to do.
Oh, 100%. That's always been this leader's problem. But it does get Onigashima. So if you're at 10, use a Dawn minus effect. Onigashima is going to ensure you're at 10. I think that's what a lot of people do with this deck. But we'll be safe and we'll put it in the oof tier. I might have to make a king deck just to flex, but we'll see about that.
You can put it in for fun. I mean, if you think it's fun to play, go ahead and throw it in there.
I mean, I'll put it there. All right, next up here, we're looking at another new deck. Actually, I'll leave this one for you. I'll grab mine. We'll look at Bello Betty here. Bello Betty is a red and yellow leader, the first in the game. This one being probably the most aggressive leader printed yet, even more than Zoro.
True.
You can just swing from 4 to 0 life in 1 turn, like really easily, and they can't do anything about it. If you see the nuts, you see the nuts. There's not much your opponent can do, unless they're Sakazuki and they see like the perfect answer. But a lot of decks have really struggle with this deck, minus Enel. Enel is really rough to end, as you do need X amount of swings per turn, and then he'll just heal back, and then you need it again, and clear your board at the same time. So that matchup's really bad, and being one of the most played in the game makes it rough as well. But purple Luffy, Sakazuki, those matchups are winnable. They really are. They're really hard to win, especially if people know how to play it.
Yeah.
Luffy not as much, but Sakazuki very much so. But even then, I think this deck is good. It's the best aggro deck in the game. I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put it in pretty good tier.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good spot. Bello Betty definitely has, so much turbo aggression. It's unreal. Next up, let's grab Garp. We'll go through these shitty leaders. Red and black. Minus cost, minus power to KO, right? So again, another deck where the colors are just counterintuitive. You don't really mix with each other too well. And so for that reason, Garp is just really bad. People tried to make it work. I feel like this is one of the worst leaders that actually got a decent amount of testing from certain people to try to make work, but it doesn't work. I think the color combination clashing so much just makes it to where the leader is kind of impossible to actually run.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put it in for fun.
Yeah, not even like he has a decent effect. Like every time you attach a Don, you get a minus cost. Is pretty interesting. Pretty strong. But yeah, at the end of the day, the color combination is just never gonna work until they come out with new cards that make it work.
Yeah.
Um, next up here, let's grab black and yellow Big Mom. Very interesting deck. I've actually been hearing people kind of talk about this deck and say it has a chance this meta. Obviously, black and yellow's power level has been getting higher and higher. This set in particular, now black is one of the best. Enel also being another one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a ton of good lists that people can play this. I just think it's underexplored. I'd even go as far as to put this in tier 2 if people played it more, but I think if we're being safe, it just belongs in tier 3.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm going to throw it right in there.
Let's grab Nami. Grab Nami for me. Nami, I think she belongs in tier 2, honestly. She has a surprisingly good matchup into Pluffy, surprisingly good matchup into probably like, I mean, I'll take that back. Pluffy is not as easy.
Yeah, I think Pluffy actually beats Nami just with the constant big bodies, and you're playing bigger guys earlier, and you don't care about taking your
Sakazuki
life
though,
either.
amazing. Enel, if they're not on Skypiea, again, another good matchup. These slower decks. It is a slower meta. These slower decks, have a hard time just, getting things on the board and having the Nami just be able to play her game right. These newer Nami lists run Nojiko. So whenever you play something below a 5-drop or below, it's just getting bounced right back. If the Sakazuki is trying to Luchi, Borsellino, just drop bodies to be able to swing, Nojiko just gets rid of them instantly. It wastes their turn, and now you're playing the Nami's game. So Nami actually is not in the worst spot. I mean, obviously it definitely still has its losing matchups, and if you don't trig out and you just low roll, it's rough. But I think it's a solid tier 2 deck in my opinion.
Yeah,
It did win
especially
the 3v3. It did win the 3v3.
it did win the 3v3, and I think they did tech that for Sakazuki specifically, but I could be wrong. Yeah, any slower meta, Nami's gonna eat it up. So this one in particular, yeah, definitely in a decent spot, but not gonna be anywhere tier 1, I don't think. Next up here, let's grab Katakuri. So a lot of people, when we were going into the OP05 meta here in the West, were saying that Katakuri is probably about even with Enel, but a lot of people were saying it's the better one compared to Enel. At this point in time, it has basically no results. So for that reason, I almost want to put it in tier 2, but I know this deck is great. I really do know this deck is great. But it does not have that Zoro promo that they got over in the East.
Yeah, true.
And I think that was one of the best cards for it, as KOing a 4 on curve, or KOing a 4 is against like Sakazuki is probably the best number to KO things with. And also that card when in hand it was just a 1k counter. So
yeah, I
think
mean
without
it doubled your Thunderbolts essentially from your trigger.
yeah.
Yeah, so I'd agree. I think Katakuri is not at full power, so I think tier 1.5, tier 2 is a better spot for it, just because it doesn't have those promos, which are a huge deal into beating Sakazuki. Right, it still can beat it, but now if you don't have that extra firepower, it just makes it a little harder, just ever so slightly.
For sure.
Let's grab Rosanante. So Don Quixote, Rosanante. I'm actually going to be trying this for locals this week, guys. So you guys will get that video this week. I hope you guys are excited for it. I've been working on a list pretty extensively, and so hopefully I can do well. But regardless, I think this is if I'm being honest, a tier 3 deck. Tier 3. Actually, now let's go for fun. It's a good deck, but I haven't tested it enough to, give it a feel for where it's at. I've just been making the list. I'm actually going to be testing it today after this video, so maybe my thoughts will change, but I think for fun is in a good spot.
I really want to disagree with you. Did you see that game on stream where the Rosanante player played against a Pluffy, I think? something like that, and they actually ended up winning. It was round 3 in a regional, so they were 3-0 this player, and honestly, not even playing that optimally. I think this deck is super underexplored, and it has a good chance to. Gee, I don't want to say get up to tier 2, but I think this deck can actually win for now. I'd love to put it in tier 3, but you're the one that's play tested it and is going to make the video. So if you think it's for fun,
Well,
I
I've
think
been,
we can leave it there.
it's been like a couple of matches just to get the deck list down,
Yeah.
and see the consistency first in the deck before I actually test it against good people, and good matchups. If you want to throw it into tier 3 for now, just for you, we can go ahead and do that.
I'm a believer. I'm a believer.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and throw it in there.
All right. And next up here, let's grab Magellan. Magellan, another deck that got a massive buff by the inclusion of the new starter deck 10. The 7-drop Kid just makes total sense. The 3-drop Heat just makes total sense. And buff the power level of this deck by a ton.
Yeah.
Obviously, purple in general got a buff. And I think he's just solid. Kind of can almost aggro down Sakazuki probably more than Luffy sometimes, just because you can swing 666 a lot of the time. Magellan's going to be great against yellow matchups. Probably the second best purple deck after Luffy, if I had to say, and I think I want to put him in tier 2 because of that.
Yeah, I feel like that's fair. I think that's okay spot. Next up, let's go ahead and grab Issho. Again, another one of those where color combination just does not work as well as it should. I'm gonna put this in oof tier. I've definitely tried this deck, made lists, tested it. It just doesn't work. I mean, the effect is okay at best, but yeah, I feel like the color combination definitely is what makes this deck falter for sure.
Yep, looking forward to Perona and OP06 for sure. They can finally make this color combo work because, in theory, it always sounds like it's going to work, but it's a little bit too many steps to make it work at the moment. Next up here, let's grab Edward Newgate. So, I don't think we've seen a ton of representation yet with this deck, but I know it's good. At the end of the day, 6K and 6 cards from life is never going to be bad.
Yeah.
This leader's pretty scary. Obviously, he's always been scary, and I think he's pretty good this set. I don't know if he even plays any OP05 cards still. But at the end of the day, Newgate's not. Yeah, Newgate's not going to be bad, right? He got the 9-drop back. We got the Marcos back, which can 4 rads, which can do really good at this meta. Obviously, the Marcos can do good against Sakazuki if we're not being bottom decked. And for that reason, I think I'm just going to put this guy in tier 2. I think he's still really good.
Yeah, I think with the right pilot, you can still definitely top in a regional.
For sure.
If you get a little bit lucky on your matchup spreads, yeah, I think that's a good spot. Let's go ahead and grab Rob Luchi. Rob Luchi, I'm going to throw him. Man, I think he belongs in tier 3. I think Rob Luchi has, all the good that black can offer while still threatening your late game with 2 big swings, right? A lot of the times, decks can't really get rid of 2 big swings like that to end the game. They could probably counter out of 1, but if you have something to KO a unit, odds are they can't block out 2. Or if they have 1 blocker, but now you're Rob Luchi, you can do 2 big swings, block first swing, Luchi effect. Now you're swinging for lethal for 12k or whatever the max swing you can do is. But I think it's in tier 3. I think it can beat a lot of decks, right? You're running black, right? So you're running removal. You're running everything you need to be successful in this meta. But at the end of the day, I think there's just better black leaders. So I think tier 3.
Yeah, I'd say kind of similar to Black Luffy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I'd say they're the best 2. And then let's go to the worst one here. It's going to be Smoker, unfortunately. He is just not as strong. His effect always requires 1 Dawn attachment. And it was always good, back when Law and Zoro were the main things you were seeing. You always had a 1-drop to get that 7k swing. Nowadays, against Pluffy, has nothing below a 4-drop. Enel has, I
Two
think the
drop.
lowest is Shura.
Yeah.
Shura at 2 drop, and then Sakazuki, same thing. 2 drop brand new is going to be its most, unless they play a sewer on board, but that's really never happening.
Mm-hmm.
So it just doesn't do a lot. Obviously, it's a 1 Don -1. At that point, you're never getting the 1K power, but Issho can do the same thing for 1 Don attachment to the whole board, and you
Mm-hmm.
see where Issho is. So, but I think black is good. 5 life is always going to be better than 4, so I think it can have a spot in for fun.
For sure. Let's grab Kuro. Kuro, I think this is another deck that can belong in for fun. Again, green is not in the best spot. I think green definitely took a step back. It was having its, moment to shine in set 4.5. That meta was green dominated, but now it's not. It's just not. I think a lot of these newer decks have answers to just flooding the board out and, you know, playing these green film cards. Kuro obviously different archetype, but it's too slow. I think it's too slow. Sakazuki will just run it over. An Enel just has too much defensive power for Kuro to overcome, in my opinion. And then Pluffy is just a stronger version of some of these other decks that just um, really decide the meta, right? So against the meta, Kuro definitely can't hang, and so for that reason, I put him in for fun.
Yeah, I mean, the best deck being Sakazuki, right? The fact that you need 2 characters on board to use his effect in the first place,
Yeah, it's expensive.
uh, it yeah, and if Sakazuki's the main deck, you're not going to have characters on board to ever do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no reason to play this guy at the moment,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Next up here, a deck I am very much looking forward to playing, blue and purple Kaido. This deck is actually awesome. I loved it last set, right? It was great. Don't get me wrong. Probably around tier 3, arguably tier 2, because you can rush to 10, do the whole thing. We had the Who's Who Searcher last set, but now we got a ton of new options. You got the new ulti, 4 drop SR, the new X-Drake, 5 cost blocker, and last but not least, the main reason I think this deck belongs in tier 2,
Mm-hmm.
the 10 drop Kaido that draws 4. So the new game plan with this deck, it's always been rush to 10 for me when I play this guy. But now it's rush to 10 and play that draw 4 Kaido, which is a game swinger. And once you play one, the odds you draw another are pretty high. So you kind of just chain those guys, deal with the board with 9 drop when you need to. You play Onigashima. And this guy can get very, very scary. If Sakazuki does not kill you quick, you can have a ton of big bodies on board before they can even blink. So I
Yeah.
think it's actually really good right now.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that's a good spot. Honestly, I've played against it, and getting chain 10 drop Kaido is just it just does not feel good. One turn your opponent's at 2 cards, 2 turns later they're at 10 cards. It's like what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and grab Sakazuki. Definitively the best deck in the set, without a doubt. This deck would have its tier of its own. I think it's not a tier 0 deck because while it doesn't have many like blow out of the water matchups where it just absolutely destroys, it doesn't have like any losing matchups. It's kind of like how Whitebeard was, right? Whitebeard had maybe one losing matchup, but then everything else either beat or went even. That's kind of how Sakazuki is, just not to that highest degree, right? It goes even with a lot of decks, but it has that edge to just be able to see half its deck in a game, right? Because it can cycle. And on top of that, it has 2 leader effects, right? The cycle and the the cost -1. So this deck just has everything it needs to be a successful tier 0 deck. But I think it's missing a little bit of percentages when it comes to matchup spread that would set it apart in tier 0. So I think Sakazuki is tier 0.5 in my personal opinion. I will say that, while these other decks being tier 1. But yeah, best deck in the set, an amazing deck. If you're going to nationals, definitely play Sakazuki, learn the mirror, and you're in good hands for sure.
Yep, definitely does not have the showings people thought it would yet, but people know it. People still know it's the best deck. It just takes a bit of getting used to.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect Sakazuki hand beats every single deck in the game with their perfect hand as well. So
Yeah.
Next up here, let's grab green and blue Sanji. Yeah, wow, a leader centered around vanillas. fun. Yeah, this guy's bad. The green blue color combo is bad. I'm not even gonna lie. Kind of two support colors that just don't work together. On top of the fact that the leader locks you into playing vanillas,
Hmm.
which obviously are not flexible in any way. You're
Yeah.
playing the same game plan every turn. You know, it's not like they can rush or remove bodies or anything, and that is an issue as your bodies are going to get removed by Sakazuki every time you play them. So, yeah, I don't think this guy has any place whatsoever right now.
Yeah, 100%. Let's go ahead and grab the kid, the red purple kid. Let's throw him in for fun. I see a perfect open slot into for fun. It is definitely the worst of the ST10 decks. There's three ST10 leaders. It is definitely the worst of the three. Put it in for fun. I don't see a world where people play test this deck and try to figure something out. The effect is the worst of the three, and it just purple red combo do work, but just this deck is just it's not in the meta. No place in it.
Yeah, you know, I'm not even. I think people are gonna get mad at us for this placement, but I think I could agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Swinging,
gonna happen. It's gonna
yeah,
happen. Like I said, for fun and oof, we apologize if that's your favorite leader. We're talking specifically from a competitive standpoint, and so it is what it is.
yeah. I think not being able to swing 5K base until you're at 3 life, I think it is just not good.
Yeah.
Next up here, let's grab Purple Kaido. So Purple Kaido is super interesting. Um, one of the only leaders that could play Onigashima along with King and Blue Purple Kaido. But this guy not having access to the blue archetype like Kaido does, you can't play the draw 4 Kaido, so you're basically stuck to 9 drop, which is great. Don't get me wrong, but that's what we've been doing since set 1,
Yeah.
guys. We're in set 5. You can play the new blocker law and the new kid and stuff like that, but realistically, why would you when you could just play other decks that are better? But his leader effect is fun a lot of the time. You can do the trash 7 and go for game, which is really cool a lot of the time, but definitely for fun deck right now. I don't think it's the worst though.
Yeah, I think you just have to wait way too long to be able to use the effect. And sometimes you're not even in a position
Mm-hmm.
to ever use the effect when you're at 10 Dawn. And so that just makes this leader more of like a vanilla leader to where you're not really benefiting off of anything other than you can play Onigashima. So, like you said, this deck is good, but just not in the right spot. All right, let's go ahead and grab a Dofi. I won my regional with Doflamingo. Don Quixote Doflamingo. Green, purple, an amazing set 4 deck. Unfortunately, in set 5, it definitely falters. Didn't get the support needed to stay afloat. And unfortunately, the film archetype just gets destroyed by Sakazuki. You have to play all your cards out of your hand. Sakazuki loves to destroy things on the board. It doesn't mix. And so right now, honestly, you guys might get mad at me. You guys are saying I gave up on this deck. I'm not playing this anymore. But it is what it is. If the deck gets better, I'll hop on it. From a competitive standpoint, I can still play it for fun here and there at locals. But right now, I think it's in for fun. Maybe tier 3. But it's just for life, so it gets rushed out. And Birdcage Dofi is a thing. So maybe we could throw it in tier 3 just because that one archetype can beat Sakazuki, but I want to say it loses to so many other matchups. I don't even know if it's worth it. Yeah, I think tier 3 is a good assessment for that deck.
I'm a believer in Birdcage Dofi. We'll probably end up showing off our list, in the next month or so, but it could be a Sakazuki killer. You guys will see. But yeah, if you're just taking for one deck and losing to all the rest, obviously, even if it's the most played deck, you're never going to win a regional with that unless you see the luckiest string of games in your life. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely not anywhere near the top right now. Speaking of someone who's not near the top, we've got Z. Has not been great since his release. The only reason you play this guy is the really strong combo of playing 10 cost Kuzan into leader effect is really strong. It's actually sort of interesting this set as we do have one of the strongest cards that is going to buff this leader, which is 5 cost Kid.
Mm-hmm.
5 cost Kid makes this leader a lot better. making that Dawn -4 turn to only a Dawn -3 and getting one Dawn active back is super good. But at the end of the day, for life, the color combo is not bad, but realistically, nobody's playing this leader. I think it actually has a good matchup into yellow. Yellow likes to play a lot of big bodies, and this leader can remove them pretty easily. And Enel's good and Katakuri as well. Don't get me wrong, but honestly, you probably just get crapped on by Sakazuki. So
Yeah.
But it's fun, totally fun. So I'm putting this for fun. This deck can totally take a locals.
Yeah.
I will not doubt that.
All right, let's go grab the other Doflamingo. This deck for sure, I'm gonna throw it in for fun. Blue not being the best archetype for mono leaders, with Croc being I think the best mono. Between Croc or Nami being the best mono blue leader, I think Doflamingo being locked into to an archetype. I don't know if you guys are noticing a lot of these leaders that are locked into archetypes just will stop being great as soon as their set falls off, right? So when it's released with its current set, obviously it's going to be new cards, new support, and power creep is a thing, so they're probably going to be a little bit stronger. But as soon as you're locked into that archetype and you're 3 more sets down the line, those cards kind of just fall off. And so I think Doflamingo is a for fun leader.
Yeah, EBO2 Warlord support, help out my boy.
Yeah.
Next up here, a deck I've been enjoying a ton of this set is a red purple Luffy, the silent Sakazuki killer. I said it here first. Now this deck is so fun. The second 6K leader in the game, only 3 life. And basically the game plan, if you guys have not seen this guy in action, is you get to 10 as fast as possible, and you play Whitebeard or you play the new 10 cost Luffy, which I originally thought was bad, but now with stuff like Diablo Jambe and stuff like that, getting through blockers, the game plan is basically hit face and then play 10 cost Luffy and hit face more, go past blockers, and win game.
Yeah.
Really fun, kind of a weird mix of like ramp and rush. Really cool and really fun, and I think it has actually a decent spot, so I'm going to put in pretty good tier 2.
Yeah, I think it's very well deserving of a tier 2. Let's grab Odin. So Kazuki Odin, again, green, not the best. I would put this deck in for fun. This deck is green and it doesn't have the tools it needs right now to be successful. Maybe later on down the line. I know there is another Odin deck coming out soon, so potentially it puts Odin back on the map. But this current mono green leader is not it.
I mean, even then, the new Odin leader is the one you want to play.
Yeah.
You would never play this one.
Yeah.
Next up here, we've got Red Ace. I think this guy could be interesting this set. The fact that you're not really caring about your bodies, it's kind of just like leader with events, can be really cool with like Fire Fist to clear boards, Inte, stuff like that. As well as you can play 9-drop Whitebeard now if you really wanted to. Yeah, but honestly, don't know. I don't think I've really seen much of this leader. So for now, I think it's just okay. So I think we'll put it in its okay tier.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the thing with Sakazuki is Sakazuki has, characters like Borsalino where Ace just can't touch, right? Because all
right.
red effects are KO. And so there's definitely units that Sakazuki can use to play around that. But let's go ahead and grab Yamato. Mono yellow leader. We're running out of space in tier 3, so let's just go ahead and throw it in oof for now. Yeah, I just not being able to use what yellow's best for, and being locked into having to go Land of Wano kind of sucks. I mean, you could run it with the Big Mom package, but at that point just play Katakuri. It's just yeah.
No 10 cost Big Mom, question mark? Next up here, let's grab blue and purple Crocodile. So this guy, we got support last set with like the 10-drop the 8-drop Crocodile that heals you and can cycle every turn. This set we have cards like 10-drop Kaido, which you might like. Even Ulti, you can run like a weird Animal Kingdom Pirates version. So I think he has a spot. I'm not gonna lie, and I think for that I'm gonna put him in for fun tier. I think he has a chance to be decent, but not the best at the end of the day. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a good spot. Law, Trafalgar Law, a deck that is tried and true. Definitely one of the most consistent decks to ever, ever be released. This leader is so good. Leader effect is one of the best. In my opinion, it is probably a top 2 leader effect. It's just an insane effect. 2 Dawn to replace a unit on board with a 5 drop is just way too good. Law currently not in the best spot in the meta. While it still can sneak games, you definitely have some rough matchups. But if you can avoid those, I think you can still 100% top in a tournament. The leader is just too good. If you hit the nuts, people are now doing turn 2 shambles. People are opting to go with an even faster shambles law deck, and so I think this deck is a solid tier 2 deck right now. Definitely, if it's your comfort pick and you can't get into playing one of the 3 new top tier 1 leaders, just stick to your comfort pick and play law. Like, you'll do so much better on it.
completely agree there. And let's just go over another red and green leader, Monkey D. Luffy from set 1. Yeah, this leader's always been bad, guys. Unfortunately, 4 Dawn
Yeah,
for that effect is way too much. Never, I, you know, with new 9 cost Zoro in set 6, we'll see. But I think even then, nobody's actually showed that this leader can do anything, and I don't think he's ever gonna do anything. So
yeah.
he might be the face of Oof tier. If I'm not even gonna lie, this guy has sucked for a little too long now.
Yeah, let's just go and throw him in oof. Maybe in the future he can get some support, or there's some cards that'll make him good. But let's go ahead and grab Roanoa Zoro. So Zoro is a deck that I honestly played for all of set 3, right? I was kind of going through the Kinemon is not good. I don't know what deck to pick after this, going through Whitebeard phases, Zoro phases, and I kind of just stuck to Zoro like from the halfway point on. And I played this deck quite a bit. It's a really fun deck, a really, good deck. And I think this is probably in set 3, OP03, I think that meta was probably the most skill gap meta. And what I mean by that is there were a lot of Whitebeards, a lot of Zoros, but the better player would always win, right? The decks had that potential to outplay skill wise, because you could play the deck so much different and better than other players on the same deck. I think Zoro currently is in between tier 2 and tier 3. He has the tools and definitely what it takes to beat some of these top tier decks. But Sakazuki, if they just hit the right cards, you're not winning. Enel, you're never winning. Here's the thing: if it's 2 players of the same caliber, 2 of the same quality players, and they both get mediocre hands or even perfect hands, the Enel's gonna always win. And that's just a matter of fact, right? You win Luffy, but other than that, I mean, you're still losing to Katakuri, in my opinion. I think that's a rougher matchup. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think Zoro's in between tier 2 and tier 3 at this moment. Um, not at its
Um,
peak right now. It's definitely not at its peak.
do you think we could put in tier 3? I think.
Yeah, he's probably like the higher end of tier 3 in my opinion.
And last but not least, here a deck that I think we were both trying towards the end of
A
OP04.
fun deck.
Very fun deck is going to be Red and Purple Law. This guy right now, really good. OP05, along with the other leaders in the same starter deck, this guy got a ton of support. The new 3-drop Searcher Law is going to make this guy a lot more consistent and a lot better with its main issue last set, which was you'd run out of cards in hand pretty fast
Yeah.
as you were kind of just throwing out bodies and, minus effects to power, which would just make your hand go down to 0,
Yes.
as well as cards like the 5-cost Kid, which are going to make that Dom -3, not only Dom -2, and get you 1 back active. So really good, kind of fast aggro-ish deck that sometimes I think can maybe overrun Sakazuki, but realistically, it's never going to be a bad matchup for Sakazuki. But I
Yeah.
think it's a really strong deck that's going to beat a lot of
It just
different
it just
archetypes.
I mean, what it comes down to is, can you finish the match before you run out of steam on a deck like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
It's
I
kind of
agree.
like Bella Betty in that sense.
Yeah. As you guys can see in the best tier 1, we have now ordered the top 3. This is what I think. I think Sakazuki for sure the best deck. Like hands down, nothing is beating it. Like it's just too good. And then Enel, I personally believe it has more winning matchups than Purple Luffy. What do you think? To give it the edge, even though Purple Luffy does beat Enel.
Listen, yeah, Purple Luffy beats Enel, but like triggers are a thing. Like there's in first place there's no arguing Sakazuki. But Enel versus Luffy, Enel has more results, first of all. And I
True.
think Enel has a better matchup spread. Like Luffy struggles with Zoro and Law and stuff like that because they go aggro. Enel does not struggle with aggro decks. This leader cooks aggro decks. Also having a semi-winnable matchup into Sakazuki.
Yeah.
And your only really technically bad matchup being Purple Luffy. Sure, it's one of the top 3. But again, another matchup that you can win. So overall, just Enel has better matchup spread, also better results. I think that's going to be a great reason why I think it's number 2 right now.
All right, Pirates, thank you guys so much for sticking to the end of this video. I know this is a really, really long video, but I think there's a lot of good insight for you guys to just honestly go through the whole video and listen. So if you made it to the end, we really appreciate it. You guys have been showing us a lot of support, so we appreciate you guys. Rosanante is up on the locals video, so stay tuned for a deck list, gameplay, and just amazing vibes on an amazing video. You guys have a wonderful day. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.